discussion. Kindly make sure that you have registered your name and details with us for this panel, as we will be distributing an exclusive summary report of the panel just for the registered attendees. Joining us today, all the way from Canada, the Chief Architect of ITEL and CIO of Aspect Group. Please give a warm welcome to our CIO panel chair for today, Ms. Sharon Taylor.
Welcome, everyone. I'm very, very happy to see so many of you have returned after the lunch. Often that's not the case. I think now we're going to have to switch gears just a little bit to try to make sure that we keep you awake after having a nice, wonderful lunch, which was wonderful, by the way. Don't you agree? Yeah. So we're going to try to encourage you to interact with our panel of distinguished guests today, who I will introduce in a moment. First, I wanted to say thank you to the BCS for asking me to come and host this panel. It's a great privilege to be here. This is my first visit to Abu Dhabi, and so far I've thoroughly enjoyed that. I'm going to take a few days off after conference and really enjoy it here and see some of the sites. So thank you to the BCS and to the chairman, Adolf, for asking me to join you for this first conference. Before I get to introducing the panel, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the structure of the panel session so that you can start to formulate your questions in your mind, etc. The panel has been selected to talk about a central theme, which we call the digital CIO. And I think my slides should be coming up. Anyway, I'll continue and they'll get the slides up for me. The purpose of this is to engage you, the audience, with some ideas and innovations and insights from our panel of experts, and to give you an opportunity to ask questions that are burning in your mind of the experience that sits up here before you. I will moderate the panel, which means I will try to keep them in line and on time, which I hope you will join me in trying to do, because I think perhaps we might have an unruly group up here. I've been warned. So I'll be your host for today. The panel session will run for 90 minutes, and it will go as follows. We'll have some opening remarks, which you are receiving now. We'll have, I'll give an opportunity to each of our panelists after I introduce them to spend 3 to 5 minutes just giving you some insights about the theme, which we've picked for today, the digital CIO and leading IT in the digital age. That will be followed by some focus areas which we've selected, hopefully that will be of interest to you. They are creating and sustaining customer experiences. These focus areas are based on some research done about the most pressing issues that CIOs face today. The second one will be raising productivity and eliminating cost. The third will be strategic leadership and the IT organization as a strategic business partner. And the last focus area will be technology innovation, challenges, opportunities, and the future. So we have prepared some questions which I will ask the panel, but we really hope that you will interact and raise your own questions and put them all on the spot to give you their wise advice and guidance. So today, technologies are really not simply disparate components any longer. The world has really changed with respect to technology and how it's being used by the business. The solutions, there are solutions whose technical structure often crosses organizational boundaries, platforms, delivery models, and customers. Technologies today are self-healing, intuitive, highly intelligent, and critical to business operation. That last factor alone, I think, is one of the reasons that we've seen such a rate of change, especially in how we interpret and demonstrate value in terms of that the business can relate to, things like return on investment, business value, etc. So because of that, today, most CIOs face the challenge of meeting customer expectations for things like cost control, security, performance, but still offering open platforms, virtual technology, and consumerized IT. So sometimes those are conflicting or competing objectives. So for the IT leader, delivering critical business services becomes far more complex than we've ever seen before in the history of IT, and challenging, especially since the expectation from the business customer for quality, cost effectiveness, and reliability also increases. So that becomes a big challenge. So the BCS has brought together some of the industry's most prominent experts and trend influencers. So this is a rare opportunity for you to hear their thought-provoking insights into how the industry is meeting these challenges, and to pose questions of the panel and have those burning questions in your mind answered. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce the panel, who, if you have attended this morning, you've probably heard before, but if you're new to the conference for the afternoon, please join me in welcoming the panel. We first have, to my immediate left, Dr. Saad Al-Barak, who is the chairman of the ILA group. Dr. Saad is a Harvard University alumnus. He graduated with a Bachelor of Science and a Master's of Science from Ohio University and a PhD from London University. As the CEO of Zain, he's expanded the company from one Kuwait operation in 2002 to 22 operations by the end of 2008. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Dr. Saad. With 63.5 million customers and market capitalization of 10+ million, he turned to a leading IT systems integrator. He was the vice chairman of SDO Amri Dewan, chairman of ITsoft, chairman of Arab Telecom, director of Arab Management Association, executive board member of Celtel International, board member of GSM Association, and currently the advisory board member of UNDP Kuwait, and a member of the International University of Africa. Dr. Barak is now chairman of ILA Group. So I think you will agree with me that he brings with him a multitude of experience. In fact, I added up the experience of the panelists, and it adds up to about 130 years. So I think we've got some good knowledge up here. So if you add to that my experience, we probably have 230 years. Which, if you do the math, that's pretty special, considering that all of us are what, in our early 30s?
Yeah.
Something like that. So joining Dr. Saad is Paul Excel, who you heard speak this morning. Paul is the CIO of Team to Market, and also an advisor, I think, for the IE² organization. Paul, is that correct?
Yes.
Paul has 34 years of experience in the global IT industry, and he co-founded the Team to Market company to provide fast, assured global channels to market for new technology companies and to accelerate revenue generation and customer experience for the complete global ecosystem. And it was very interesting to hear you talk about that today, Paul. To Paul's left is, and I know I'm going to get this wrong, so forgive me in advance if I do.
You're forgiven.
Wael Abu Shakra.
Very
How did
good.
I do?
Awesome.
Yes. Wael, who also spoke this morning, has over 20 years of professional experience in the industry. He's a master inventor and an innovation mentor and senior development manager at IBM. I'm really interested to hear about the master inventor role and what that's all about. Wael is the former Inventor of the Year at IBM, 2007, and has over 150 patent applications and publications. One of Wael's patents was featured on the BBC News in 2012 after it was purchased from IBM, by a major corporation as a basis for one of its social networking platforms. He is a recipient of the Mullins Silver Medal from Engineers Ireland and Outstanding Achievement Award from the Model United Nations in New York, and now a recipient of an Outstanding Achievement Award from this conference as well. So please welcome Wael. And last but not least, on my far left, is Phil Pavitt. Phil, who also spoke this morning with an interesting speech about people, and I've got some special questions lined up for you, Phil. Phil has over 25 years of experience, and I hope you're not adding this up, because if it didn't come out to 130, I would be rather embarrassed. Phil's experience is both in private and public sector organizations, and he was previously the CIO of the Transport for London, where he led a major overhaul of the IT function there. Prior to that, he's held positions as CIO at OneTel and NTL. Phil recently joined Aviva, and I think they're lucky to have him after hearing you speak this morning, Phil, where he will aim to simplify the insurance company's IT services and modernize and digitize its business. So please join me in welcoming our panelists for today. So I did mention, I think, that we are very anxious to have you interact with us, and to that end, we have a member here supporting us today who will have a microphone. If you have a question, when it gets time for the open question, which I will let you know, please raise your hand. We'll have a microphone brought to you, and you can address your question to any member of the panel that you like, or to all of them. So I'll be keeping time. And I think I will kick it off by opening up the first focus area and asking the first question. And before that, I would like each of our panelists to spend about 3 to 5 minutes just talking about their insights regarding the digital CIO. So I'll start with Dr. Saad to my left and move down the line.
Hello, good afternoon. First of all, apologies to have a panel discussion after lunch. Is a big challenge. Thank you for coming back. That's really brave. But I promise you not to bore you with long, unending answers in order to evade the question. And by the way, I'm well known for my bikini answers. And a bikini answer is an answer which is short enough to be attractive and long enough to cover the basics. So. CIO, I think we are talking about, I hope we are talking about Chief Information Officer.
Yes, we are.
And for me, CIO has been synonymous to CIA or Chief Intimidating Officer, because that's what CIOs do in many organizations. I think I was very happy to listen to Phil and to Paul this morning. Both have been speaking about the real role of the CIO, which is human leadership, which is Warren Bennis, the greatest authority in the world in terms of leadership. He talks about leaders are managers of structures or architectures where ideas, relationship, and can flourish. And the idea is to set up this environment that is conducive to excellence, to imagination, to innovation and creativity in general. And I think 99% of CIOs in the world, they do not understand their job until today. And I've been, whether it's our organizations, where always the IT people, in every presentation, they are trying to remind us that we don't know nothing, and we are still idiots, and we need a lot of time to mature and live up to the knowledge of the information, the IT people. I have run an IT company for 20 years. So I have dealt with a lot of CIOs or IT directors in general in the old days. In fact, my PhD research is success and failure of IT systems, but from a socio-organizational perspective. And guess what? 99% of IT projects fail solely because of organizational politics and socio-organizational factors that has nothing to do with technology. Technology is no more than a manifestation of psychology inside the organization. So if you are a control freak, you will build a lot of do loops in your systems to check and so on, and your company will spend a lot of money on buying huge hardware. The old IBMs or the great IBMs, I wouldn't say anything wrong about IBM after. The issue is really the greatest challenge to CIOs is not technology. After all, CIOs are not responsible about technology. Okay? They are not technology, unless they are in a technology development organization, okay? But you cannot be a CIO of a bank and get obsessed with cloud computing and go train yourself on how to write cloud computing software, for example. I mean, I think this would be a waste of time. Now, how many of you have seen people sending people to write codes, still custom-built code internally in an organization, which is conducive only to problems and enigmas and trying to resolve organizational problems? So I think the very, I'm really, obsessed by this problem, the problem of the CIO not knowing his real job, that he is a human community leader, and his job is to be the chief entertaining officer of this bunch of individuals who are supposed to be imaginative and creative, making them secure, happy, well-resourced, and extremely having a great time, great fun, in order for them to excel and innovate and be brilliant as they should be. So.
Thank you, Dr. Saad. I don't think that was quite a teeny bikini, but it was very interesting.
Relative to the scale of the problem.
Yes. Over to you, Paul.
Thanks. Well, good afternoon, everyone. And again, thanks for coming after lunch. And it was an excellent lunch. So I was preparing for this, and you just picked out one. I was thinking that what I must do maybe is write down the 50 shades of CIO, where you've got CIO as Chief Intelligence Officer, Inspiration Officer, and all these Income Officer. I think there's a lot of them. We've covered them. We'll get into a few specifics, and I had the opportunity of some time this morning. I thought what I'd do is just maybe bring it together, because it's a bit more fun, for me anyway, in telling a story that brings together all four, I think, of the key things. I heard this acronym first a little while ago, SMAC. So SMAC. Everything that you talk about as a CIO these days has to have social, mobile, analytics, and cloud in it, right? Or at least big data we were talking about. So they're obviously the buzzwords, and if you like to play a certain type of bingo, you'll get a number of those coming out, no doubt. It's impossible not to. Let me just take you back to a very, very quick example, I think, that brings all these things together. So forgive me if I speak a little bit about Team GB, the Olympics. And I could tell you a little bit about what we did for the Olympics in London. But what I thought I'd do is a more human story for me, and a more interesting one from the analytics side of things, is the Team GB cycling team. So what this team set out to do 4 years ago, a British athlete had never won the Tour de France, which is arguably the hardest athletic race ever, or athletic endeavor ever. When you see what they have to do, forget what it is, in thousands of miles in a very short period of time, the endurance that's required. And also to up the number of golds that they'd won, or at least win the same number of golds, maybe more than they did in Beijing. And to do all that clean, i.e. without drug taking. So as a team, they sat down, and here's part of the process, the leadership process. Dales Brailsford, the leader, if you like, the CIO in my terms, sat down with all the athletes, with all the support teams, and said, how are we going to do this? Drugs probably give you between a 20 and 30% performance improvement. You can train harder, you can compete harder. We are going to be clean. This sport obviously has had its turmoil. We need to find 20 or 30% from somewhere. And one of the things often we do when we do this innovation thing, we kind of think there's some silver bullet, there's some golden solution. We can stick some people in a room, give us some pizza, and they'll come out with a eureka moment. And of course, there are breakthrough innovations, but a lot of innovation, I would always segment it into at least three buckets. One's breakthrough, and definitely look for those, because they are game changers, and at least you need to know where they're coming from, because they're discontinuities. There's platform ones. Certainly for a CIO, you need to understand where your platforms are going. And there's the incremental ones. These are just things like innovation around pricing packages and so on. But very quickly, going back to the Team GB, they tried to find ways with a clear goal, the goal being a British athlete to win the Tour de France and Britain to win a number of golds at the London Olympics. So they sat down and looked at everything. And they went through, in forensic detail, in real forensic detail the performance of their athletes. They could tell during training periods where and how each athlete was, how many pedals, why. They would have feedback afterwards. They looked in absolutely every detail about how an athlete performed on every training run. They looked at their diet to find 1 or 2%. They looked at their physiotherapy regime. They hired psychologists to get their state of mind right. One thing that blew my mind, they identified that in order on the Tour de France